take it over.
Hello. Greetings. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Can you hear him in the back? Okay. All right. So my name is Matt Beckley. I'm not a founder or a coder, but I've been with Greenbits for a really long time, and so I know it really well. Like a lot of you, I'm brand new to this event, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Some of the things I wanted to talk with you about today is, number one, give you a brief introduction to our software, what it does, but then also talk about the ecosystem that we work in, because it's quite interesting and there's a lot of really interesting technical challenges associated with it. So what is Greenbits? As you can see here, it's obviously a point of sale system. We like to call ourselves the painless point of sale for marijuana retailers, and a little over 100 of the recreational retail stores in Washington State would very much agree with that statement, especially the ones that have tried other point of sale systems and migrated over. A little bit about the team. So I'm not a founder, but there were 3 engineers that founded this company in early 2014, right as the Washington recreational market was opening. We started out with 1 store and pretty much no software, and we've grown that pretty quietly to a dominant market share in the state. We're running a little bit over 100 of the recreational retail stores up there, and we're really excited to be launching in Oregon and Colorado very soon. A little bit about our system. So the core of the system is the back office. It's web-based. It's where our retailers spend many hours of their day. They manage inventory and they run reports in this system. It's kind of the hub for ensuring compliance with the state. They ring all of their sales through a register app, which they actually download from the App Store. And we also have this nifty inventory app that actually runs on an iPod Touch or an iPhone, so that retailers can walk around their store and manage inventory on the go. I'm going to take a quick drink. I'm not a coder, but this is our technology stack. So if you are an engineer and you are good in any of these skills, we would love to hear from you. So how it works. I'll try to break this down pretty simply. Greenbits is different than all the other point of sale systems that you might know out there. One of the fundamental ways that it's different is that it has a continuous sync with the state's traceability system, which we'll get into a little bit later. But basically, the way it works is these retail stores are constantly worried about compliance, and there's a very heavy regulatory burden on them, and so their point of sale has to do all of these crazy things and constantly be in sync with the state system. Otherwise, the LCB, the Liquor Control Board, could randomly stop by their store, run an audit, and ding them in for a failure. So any point of sale that doesn't have this integration with the state traceability system or the seed to sale system is essentially broken, which is why you don't see any other point of sales in marijuana retail stores except for marijuana specific point of sale systems. If a retailer tried to use a point of sale system that wasn't marijuana specific or didn't have this integration with the state API, they're literally doing double data entry back and forth all day, trying to reconcile numbers with state quantities, going into a clunky state system. It's quite nasty. So I've mentioned this term traceability a couple times, and I want to touch on it just a little bit because it's really interesting. So you can see a definition right here of what traceability is. Essentially, it is the system of checks and balances that a state implements in order to ensure that there is no diversion of product out of a specific market. That's a requirement from the federal government. And it's essentially the reason why these retailers have to deal with so much compliance. Traceability exists in some other industries, which is kind of interesting. You see it in food processing, you see it in automotive manufacturing, and even in timber sales. But you don't see it anywhere else in a retail environment. And this is what it looks like in a retail environment in Washington State. This 16-digit number that you're seeing right here is called a marijuana lot number. And it essentially is the unique identifier that traces this bag of product all the way back to the original plant. And so every single time these retailers sell this product, they have to somehow report that they sold that product in the state system. And they have to always keep track of it in their inventory system. And that's essentially what our point of sale and inventory management solution does. So going into a little bit more detail about these traceability systems, you can also call them seed to sale systems. So you've essentially got two main companies that run these state contracts, BioTrack and Franwell. And as recreational markets and medical markets are expanding, these two companies are essentially fighting it out for state contracts. And each state contract and ecosystem is slightly different. You can see which states are run by BioTrack and which one Franwell. Oregon, a little bit later this year, is going to implement seed to sale tracking. It's interesting, right now all the dispensaries, they essentially sell product without this tracking. But later this year, they're going to add on seed to sale tracking. This is kind of what a national snapshot of the ecosystem looks like. These yellow states are the Franwell states, and then the blue ones are the BioTrack. Essentially, these colored states are...
Questions. That's 5 minutes.
Questions? All right.
Thank you. All right, we turn down the mic. Just start picking them out. Who's got questions?
So you guys cater to retail, but you also help manufacturing companies,
They do, but we have
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. So the question was, do we work with producer processors, and do they have to track inventory in the same way? And the answer is they do. One of the fundamental differences in those two vendors that I mentioned is one allows for vertical integration and the other does not. And so up in Washington State, each business either has to choose to be a grower, a processor, or a retailer, but they all have to do seed to sale tracking and they all have to report all their quantities to the state. So we only work with retailers. That's what we've chosen to focus on for now.
So
Yes.
you mentioned Franwell. Is that some generic term referencing the accessibility of the program itself to explain that? What's Franwell?
Yeah, so the question is, what is Franwell? So Franwell is actually a company that works in other industries. They do RFID technology, but they have chosen to kind of delve into the cannabis industry. And so they actually have a product. In Colorado, it's called Metric. And up here, it's actually called the Cannabis Tracking System. The CTS is what retailers are calling it. But it's essentially the same product. It's an information system. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Somewhat. Other questions?
When you talk about your API to go into the Franwell system and the other systems that track with the state?
So the question was about the API and the integration with the state. So the companies that build these seed to sale systems, they build the APIs.
What does your API connect to?
The state API. Or actually our API, our register app uses our internal API, but we use the state's API to communicate back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
So the question I think I'm hearing asked right now is, would your system be applicable in Oregon once the adult retail use market comes online?
Yes. So the question was, will green bits be applicable in this state when the CTS is implemented? And that's correct. That's actually, our launch is essentially timed with that. Yes.
Just kind of leading off that, is that API access, is that a part of the public data protocols, or is that some kind of agreement between Greenbits and the states?
Great question. So the API is actually public. If you were to go to the Washington State Liquor Control Board's website, they'll have a link to it and you can read all of the information about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So is Oregon going to be using the same protocol?
Completely different. Different protocol.
Way,
Of course.
way different.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah.